the vanished treasures of the Third Reich. In the last days of the war, the Nazis hastily transported billions of dollars worth of gold, jewelry, and currency. But when the Allies entered Germany, most of the valuables mysteriously disappeared. This frame is only a small part of what was found. Where the rest is remains one of the greatest mysteries of the 20th century. Pictured is the infamous single-shot Derringer pocket pistol used by John Wilkes Booth to shoot President Abraham Lincoln on April 14, 1865 at Ford's Theater, Washington. This small weapon, only about 15 centimeters long, became part of one of the most tragic pages in American history. Today, the pistol is kept at the Smithsonian Institution as a historical artifact, reminding of the fragility of the world and the consequences of political hatred. The image shows a surprisingly accurate map of the Italian city of Imola, created by Leonardo da Vinci in 1502. To do this, he used only the simplest tools, rulers and protractors, with which he measured the angles of the roads. The map impresses with its geometric accuracy and resembles a modern satellite image so much that it seems impossible for the 15th century. Da Vinci created it on behalf of Cesare Borgia, who needed it for military needs. The photo shows Joe Arridi handing over his toy railroad to another prisoner before his execution in 1939. With an IQ of only 46, he didn't realize what was going on and remained good-natured to the end. 72 years after his death, it turned out that the confession had been forced out. Joe was officially found not guilty. The photo shows the aftermath of a catastrophic flood in Germany. Powerful streams of water literally eroded the soil, forming a huge hole in the ground, like a torn fragment of the landscape. The surface layer of fields and streets was demolished, agricultural plots were destroyed, and houses were on the edge of a sudden chasm. In July 1921, a crowd reportedly consisting of approximately 10,000 men gather outside the New York Times building in New York's Times Square in order to receive updates on the boxing match between Jack Dempsey and Georges Carpentier. 8 beams from the American nuclear missile known as the Peacekeeper light up the skies above Kwajalein Atoll in the Marshall Islands during a test launch in 1984. The Peacekeeper could launch up to 10 nuclear warheads at 10 different targets simultaneously. Ultimately, with the Cold War over, the U.S. retired its final Peacekeeper in 2005. In the photo, participants of the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, August 1963. This historic event brought together thousands of people of different races, including white protesters, who stood in solidarity for equal rights and justice. It was at this march that Martin Luther King delivered his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. In 1992, on the 500th anniversary of the discovery of America, a native of Mexico personally demolished a monument to the Spanish conquistador Diego de Mazariegos in the city of San Cristobal de las Casas, Chiapas. It became a symbolic act of protest against the colonial past and the injustices that indigenous peoples have faced for centuries. In the photo are journalists Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein, whose investigations uncovered the Watergate scandal, which caused the first voluntary resignation of the president in the history of the United States. Here they watch a live broadcast of Richard Nixon's announcement of his resignation on August 8, 1974, a moment that became the pinnacle of their journalistic careers and a turning point in American politics. These boots were found on the mummy of a woman in the Altai Mountains, at an altitude of more than 2,800 meters. According to archaeologists, the find is about 1,500 years old. Despite their age, the shoes are well preserved. The colorful textile inserts on the socks, reminiscent of modern designer sneakers, are especially surprising. In the photo, young Bruce Lee trains with Wing Chun, Master Ip Man, Hong Kong, 1955. It was under his tutelage that Lee learned the basics of martial art, which later formed the basis of his own fighting philosophy. Their collaboration became the beginning of a legend that changed the perception of martial arts around the world. German soldiers who played pranks on Belarusian children during the First World War are captured in a rare moment of humanity in the midst of chaos. Despite their front-line uniforms, there is no malice on their faces. One is dragging a makeshift cart with kids laughing in it, and the other is pushing from behind, as if forgetting about military duties for a minute. This is not a fantastic decoration, but a real dwelling made of mammoth bones, found in 1965 in Mezhyrich, Ukraine. The hut was built about 15,000 years ago. 149 bones held together by tendons and covered with skins formed a solid structure with ventilation and protection from the cold, one of the oldest examples of Paleolithic engineering. In the 1930s, visitors gathered to take a look at one of the two huge Roman ships raised from the bottom of Lake Nemi in Italy. These vessels, created in the 1st century AD under Emperor Caligula, were masterpieces of ancient shipbuilding, with marble floors, plumbing, and sculptures. They were recovered as part of an ambitious archaeological operation, but in 1944 both were destroyed by fire during the retreat of German troops. Tony Curtis holds Jack Lemmon, dressed in women's pajamas, with a smile during the filming of the cult comedy Only Girls and Jazz in California, 1958. Off-screen, they remain friends, despite the comic roles that have earned the film the status of one of the best comedies in the history of cinema. The photo shows a unique leather bookcase created in Italy between 1465 and 1485. The top is decorated with the Latin inscription Memento Me, Remember Me, and the central part is decorated with a bas-relief with the Holy Trinity. There are signs of manual repairs. The corner of the bag is neatly sewn. This rare Renaissance artifact is now preserved in the Morgan Library in New York. Pictured is the Raleigh Safety 7, a three-wheeled car created in the 1930s by the British firm Raleigh Cycle Co. This small-size vehicle was positioned as a safe alternative to a motorcycle, with a closed body, steering wheel, and full seat. Due to its lightweight design and ease of maintenance, the car was popular among urban families. The photo shows actor Richard Kiel, known for his role as the iron-toothed villain Jaws in the James Bond films, and actor Roger Moore, who played Bond himself. Despite his impressive height, about 218 m, and ominous screen image, Kiel was a surprisingly kind, cheerful, and sincere person in life, which was noted by everyone who worked with him. The photo shows the test of a phosphorus aerial bomb dropped from a biplane onto the decommissioned battleship USS Alabama, BB-8, in 1921. White phosphorus ignites instantly upon contact with air, creating a blinding flash and a cloud of burning smoke. These bombs were used to create smoke screens and as incendiary weapons, but later their use became highly controversial due to their devastating effects on people and nature. The 1924 photograph shows 87-year-old Laura Hawkins Fraser, the same girl from the childhood of Samuel Clemens, better known as Mark Twain. It was she who inspired him to create the image of Becky Thatcher, Tom Sawyer's lover. This rare portrait connects the fictional world of classical literature and the real fate of a woman who has become an immortal prototype. The photo shows a giant silver vessel with a volume of 4,500 liters, made in 1902 for the Maharaja of Jaipur. He ordered 2 of these jugs so that he could take water from the Ganges, the sacred river, with him during his trip to England. The vessel is considered to be the largest in the world, made of solid silver, and is still kept in the city palace of Jaipur. The taxi driver is waiting for orders. Istanbul, 1981. DeSoto is a brand of cars developed by Chrysler Corporation and produced in the United States between 1928 and 1961. The photo shows Paul Newman and Joan Woodward in 1958, shortly after their wedding. Behind them are walls covered with photographs and awards, among which Newman's Oscar is visible. This is a picture not only about fame, but also about the beginning of one of the strongest Hollywood couples, whose marriage lasted more than 50 years. The photo shows Robert and Jane McEwen in front of their log cabin near Choctaw, Oklahoma, in 1895. This photograph is a rare glimpse into the life of American settlers at the end of the 19th century. Simple clothes, homemade furniture, and an unfurnished house with a sagging door. All this conveys the atmosphere of harsh but real life in the era of Western exploration. The photo shows an unusual compact from the 1920s, made in the shape of a pistol. Externally, it imitates a weapon, but inside there are compartments for powder, sponges, lipsticks, and even a small perfume bottle. Operation Chopper, 1962. the first combat experience of American troops in Vietnam. Pictured, a CH-21 Shawnee helicopter lands South Vietnamese soldiers in a swampy area near Saigon. This mission marked the beginning of direct U.S. involvement in the conflict, ushering in the era of helicopter warfare, where mobility and speed became key advantages in the fight against the Viet Cong guerrillas. The photo shows a large family in a small room in Paris, 1952. The picture was taken by French photographer Jean-Philippe Charbonnier, known for his attention to the details of everyday life. This scene conveys the warm but modest atmosphere of the post-war period, when families huddle in a confined space, sharing not only housing, but also hopes for a better future. The photo shows painters and street workers with brooms waiting to work at a market in Bucharest, Romania, 1928. Women and men in traditional clothes sit and stand along the street, many with baskets, perhaps with lunch or tools. This scene conveys the atmosphere of poverty and the daily struggle for earnings during the interwar period. Such queues were common in those years. People gathered in squares and markets with the hope of getting at least some kind of part-time job. The image shows a mechanical egg sorting scale called Hen's Best. Such devices were used to classify eggs by weight: small, medium, large, extra large. The egg was placed on a metal bowl on the right, and the arrow indicated the corresponding category on the scale. This allowed farmers and traders to accurately and consistently separate eggs according to the standards set for sale. An example of typical agricultural utensils from the middle of the 20th century. The photo shows the steamer Mercure, which ran aground off the coast of the Trondheim Fjord in Norway, 1919. The ship tilted heavily and dozens of boats gathered around it, probably to help with rescue operations or cargo evacuation. Against the background are the harsh and majestic snow, capped cliffs typical of Norwegian fjords. This image has become a rare visual evidence of the complex maritime navigation in the northern latitudes of the early 20th century. The photo shows an Inuit woman with a baby taken on King Island, Alaska between 1915 and 1925. The mother and child are wrapped in traditional fur-lined clothing, ideally adapted to the harsh Arctic conditions. The child is sitting in a special carrying hood, which was part of the women's parka. It was warmed by the warmth of the mother's body. The photo shows a rare, fully equipped and unopened stationary set daisy desk set from the 1970s. It is made in bright yellow with white daisies, a characteristic style of the hippie and pop art era. The set includes a letter opener, a postcard holder, a business card holder, and a paper organizer. Everything is decorated in a positive and cheerful design, which symbolizes the optimism of that time, a real find for vintage stationery collectors. In the midst of the harsh winter of 1945, amidst the snow and cold of the Ardennes, a soldier finds a rare moment of warmth, a friendly handshake with his four-legged companion. Even in the most difficult conditions, humanity is not lost. The end of the 19th century, a stream of felled trees is moving along a stormy river, and rafters with long poles are moving along the shore. Their task is to prevent the logs from getting stuck and bring the cargo to the sawmill. Before the advent of trains, this was how the entire wood industry worked. The photo shows a miniature book, The Stars in Space, from the Cracker Jack miniature book series, printed in the USA in 1964. These tiny editions were placed in popcorn packages as a surprise toy. It's a small format, but with a real cosmic story inside. At the beginning of the 20th century, not only workers worked in factories, but also readers. While the women were collecting the products, a special lecturer read the news or books aloud to brighten up the hours of monotonous work. Later, radio took over this role. Christmas, 1942. In the jungles of New Guinea, a Papuan leads a wounded Australian soldier to safety, without shoes on a sultry path, step by step, to salvation. This scene has become a symbol of mutual aid that knows no boundaries. Tibet, 1955. A local resident greets the photographer by sticking out his tongue, a gesture of politeness and good intentions. This tradition has its roots in ancient beliefs. A demon had a green tongue, while a human had an ordinary one. The Vancouver Sun newspaper, with the headline, "Long Live the Queen," is a historical issue dedicated to the accession of Elizabeth II to the throne in 1952, the moment that marked the beginning of one of the longest monarchical eras in British history. Los Angeles, 1926. Against the background of the fashion for short hairstyles, a long hair contest is organized, and it gathers an impressive queue of participants. Genevieve Slade, with a 152 cm long hair, won. A real beauty contest, according to the ruler. USA, 1902. The logging operations near the Hudson River were amazing in scale. The photo shows a huge tree trunk, inside which a horseman and two men can freely fit. A vivid illustration of what kind of giants man was dealing with back then. The year is 1928. The circus elephant from Earl's Court performs one of the most memorable tricks. It gently lifts a person with its trunk and holds it in its mouth. An amazing balance of trust, training, and spectacle. The photo shows the original Prince Albert tobacco tin, produced in the early 20th century. The patent is dated 1907. Such jars used to store fragrant tobacco for pipes and hand-rolled cigarettes, and today they have become real rarities. A memory of another era. Sweden, Stockholm, 1895. Bar patrons gather at the entrance, in work clothes with warm capes on their shoulders. A simple scene from the end of the 19th century, in which you can feel the spirit of the street, everyday life, and short breaks between working days. The year is 1949. The stagecoach is rushing along the runway, and above it is a Douglas DC, 3 aircraft from American Airlines. The moment when the 19th century literally intersected with the 20th. The change of era is in one shot. Before the invention of radar, the enemy had to be listened to. The photo shows acoustic locators used by trained soldiers to detect the sound of approaching aircraft. One of the most unusual ways to conduct reconnaissance is with your ears. A newspaper dated July 20th, 1969, with the headline, "We made it, we're on the moon." A true relic that captures the moment when humanity first set foot on the moon. Grandma didn't just save the newspaper, she saved the story. USA, 1905. The house, built from a giant tree stump, has become a local landmark. There are 6 residents inside and tourists with cameras outside. A house made of wood, in the most literal sense. The Netherlands, 1914. The freight car has been converted into a mobile hospital with suspended stretchers for the wounded. A Red Cross medic checks the condition of the fighters. The country remained neutral, but sheltered and treated thousands of soldiers from all sides of the conflict. Germany, 1962. The giant chandelier of 220,000 parts was assembled not in an exhibition hall, but in a slaughterhouse, simply because there was nowhere else. The order was for an Arab sheikh. The work was for German craftsmen, and the cow, ironically, became the first spectator of luxury. These curved bronze pipes are lures, musical instruments from the Bronze Age found in Denmark. They are about 3,000 years old, and they still sound booming, powerful, almost divine. Their sound may have opened sacrificial rites or called for battle. France, 1935. Here is the chalet, Moudon Wind Tunnel, one of the largest in the world at that time. In this gigantic structure, airplanes were tested. As if playing with the wind, it speeds up to 200 km/h. The person below is for scale, and he is not at all the main one here. France, the beginning of the 20th century. A medical kit with ampules of ether, morphine, caffeine, and other drugs intended for emergency care. Such first aid kits were carried by doctors. It was the standard before the advent of modern regulations and packages. NASA, 1961. Goodyear engineers are testing a toroid, an inflatable module designed as a living compartment for the space station. This was the first attempt to create a lightweight and compact space tent. He never got into space, but the idea was ahead of its time. Vietnam, 1970. A man swims along the Mekong Delta through a dead forest. The trees died because of the chemical agent orange. The waterline is alive. The shores seem to be scorched. This was one of the most tragic chapters of the environmental war. In front of you is an antique vending machine, probably from the 1970s. To select a jar, you had to pull the desired lever from below. The inscription, "Go Fresh." Promised refreshment. even if the Coca-Cola inside has been warm for a long time. This is what a visit to the dentist looked like 100 years ago. The metal monster with hoses, straps, and pedals is not an armchair, but a test of courage. Anesthesia, sometimes. Panic, almost always. The light fell into my eyes, the drill bit roared, and the smell of antiseptic remained in my memory for a long time. New Zealand, 1910. David Taylor's butcher shop looks like it's been painted. The narrow building looks like it's been carved out of plywood, but it's real. The meat is hanging on hooks. The cart is waiting for delivery, and the family is posing as if for a century-old advertisement.